Evening, everyone. Firstly, Gailey, thank you very much for giving up your an hour of your evening, mate. We know the pressures that you're under at the minute, given the workload you've got with the pro squad. So thank you very much for taking the time out to be with us tonight.
No problem. Is my signal okay then? Can you hear me all right?
Perfect, mate. Yeah.
Good.
We've got one birthday to kick off with. Gailey, did you get my message?
Yep. Lewis Upton, 11th birthday yesterday, so happy birthday. Another lockdown birthday.
Well, all have had one by the time we get back to the season, won't we?
Some might have had two.
Yeah. I feel like I've had 15. So, Gailey, getting kicked off, there's the obvious question that always flies in at us from many angles. So, from Thomas and Seb, what got you into cricket, and how old were you when it all started?
I got into cricket by chance, really. I had some older friends who used to go to Gumble Cricket Club. To start off with, I wasn't really that fussed for cricket, and on Friday nights, my friends were up at the cricket club practicing, and I wasn't allowed because I was a bit younger. So it was by chance that I started to sneak up to the cricket club every Friday night, and after about 6 weeks, I remember asking my mum if I could have a cricket bat, and that's when I had to tell her that I'd been sneaking to the cricket club on Friday nights, and that's how I got into cricket. Really, I was about 8 years old, and it happened quite quickly. I'd performed okay, and I wasn't really from a cricketing background. My dad didn't play cricket, and a letter came through the post for a district trial. And when I got there, it turns out it was a Yorkshire trial. And I remember going to through that trial and then getting to the final trial, and eventually ended up getting in Yorkshire in the 11s and coming through the pathway from then on in. So cricket, it happened by chance for me. I always wanted to be a footballer. Big Huddersfield Town fan. I wanted to play up front for Huddersfield Town. I still think I probably could, actually, when I watch them. But I just got into cricket by chance, and it wasn't until I was sort of 14, 15 that I really took it seriously and thought I can make a career out of this. So, yeah.
I know you're quite an advocate for playing multi-sports, aren't you, to keep athletic development going. I know you kept your football going throughout, and occasionally missing the odd cricket session. I remember the pathway sessions you were. Do you still believe in that? Is it good to keep the multi-sports going?
Absolutely. I speak to our academy boss, Ian Dews and Richard Dams, and I believe that it's good to play multi-sports. I know football stop other sports from a young age, but I think the movement patterns that you get from different sports, the confidence that you get, the people that you get to meet, and you don't want to put your eggs in a basket. If I'd have put my eggs in one basket at 10 years old, I'd have gone to tried to be a footballer, and I might not have had a career in cricket. So, I'm a believer until it comes where you've got to say, I can't play anymore. I think play multi-sports, but I think you remember, Bryce, we were playing football together when we were 24, 25 years old in the winters.
Yeah.
Because it was good fitness.
It was, yeah. Good advice. So, leading on to Ray's question, which is good. What would you tell your 9-year-old self to work on to achieve your dreams of playing for Yorkshire? So rewind all those years to when you started.
I think the biggest thing I look back on is I put too much pressure on myself as a young player. So I remember when my mum and dad were driving to the ground, I was so nervous to a point where I used to be sick before I went out to bat sometimes. I was that nervous. And if I had my time again, I think I'd take more pressure off myself and just enjoy it a bit more. It wasn't until I got to 17, 18 years old that I started to relax about my cricket. And I think probably because I was playing every day at that point, I always knew if I didn't get any runs today, there was always tomorrow. But I think as a 9, 10, 11-year-old lad, I just wound myself up too much, and I had too much fear of failure, and that restricted me from scoring runs. I probably too frightened of getting out, and I don't know where that came from because I was under no pressure from my parents. But yeah, if I could wind the clock back, I think enjoying the game a bit more and not putting too much pressure on myself.
So just focusing on that a little bit, because I'm pretty sure that a lot of people on this call will be able to resonate with those thoughts of putting pressure on yourself. Maybe not to the extreme of being sick before you go out to bat. That is a shocker. But you said, you'd go back and tell yourself not to put that pressure on yourself. How do you do that? Is that through just remembering that you're just trying to enjoy the game? Did you put that pressure on yourself because you were Andrew Gale from Gomersall Cricket Club, who were playing for Yorkshire, and therefore it was internal? You had to live up to that hype. Was it all you?
Yeah, I think it was all me. There was no external pressure from anywhere else. And I think I did get better with dealing with that throughout my career. But I think that's why I got so much confidence from my practice, because I knew as I got older and became an academy and a full professional, it meant I could practice more. And it meant that when I went out to bat or turned up at a game, I knew I'd left no stone unturned. And that meant I got all my confidence going into the game then. And whatever happened, if I got out for none or I got 100, I could look myself in the mirror at the end of the day and go, give it my best shot. So it took that fear of failure away a little bit.
Just that, I know Green is a massive advocate of that now. The Paddy Upton's way of thinking about, if you do the prep work and it still doesn't work out, you can go to bed that night guilt-free. And it was just someone else's day. So that leads on to Noah's.
Yeah, and I mean,
sorry, go on.
If you look at cricketers, I mean, obviously he's on a fantastic run at the minute, but the best players in the world, if they score 100, 1 out of 3, they're the best players in the world. So you're gonna have more bad days than you're not going to get 100 every time you go to the crease. You're going to get a bad decision. You're going to get a run out that's unlucky. You're going to bowl a bad ball, drop a catch. So you actually have more bad days than good. And I think the best players that I've played with are the ones that stay most level throughout. So you can't tell if they've got none. You sit next to them in the dressing room, they're not beating themselves up. You can't tell if they've got 100. They're still the same person and they're very consistent in their behaviours. So, the thing is that you don't beat yourself up when you have them bad days.
But still enjoy the good ones when you have them.
Absolutely.
So Noah wants to know, when did it all click? When did you actually decide, I think you mentioned 14, 15, that you wanted to be a professional cricketer? Because if the start of it all happened by chance, when did it click in that, I actually enjoy this, I want to do this for a living?
Well, I think I always enjoyed playing it, but I just didn't ever think there were a career in it. And it wasn't until I got to 14, 15, I was playing Yorkshire schools, and I kept giving my wicket away when I was on 30. I'd scored like 3 or 4 30s in a row. And it was my granddad who sat me down. He played a bit of league cricket, and he said, your mum and dad are giving up all this time for you, trailing all over the country, and you're letting them down. You get to 30, you could easily get 100. So you've got to knuckle down when you get to 30 and start again. And if you want people to look at your scores, you've got to make 3 figures. You've got to make big hundreds. So that clicked to me that I was just I was on an easy ride, really. I wasn't taking it seriously enough. So I think it was the next 8 games I didn't get one score under 50. I ended up getting 2 or 300s. 4 or 5 50s, something like that, and ended up, going close to breaking the records in Yorkshire under 15s, and ended up playing for England under 15s. And that's when the penny dropped, and the academy coach at the time, Steve Oldham, came sniffing round, and he sort of said, you'll be offered an academy contract at the end of the season. And that's when I started to take it seriously. That's when I started to look at the way I was training, the way I was batting in the nets, my all-round fitness. Bleep tests started to come in, so I knew I had to get fitter, lose some weight, watch what I ate, not stay out late with my mates on a Friday or Saturday night, get to bed early. All them sort of things started to click with me. So, and then I got given an academy contract. And then again, you're just looking around the dressing room and you're seeing players that are better than yourself. So you've got to try and make yourself better than them, because ultimately every year there's only 1 or 2 gets offered pro contracts, and the rest get left by the wayside. So I had to work extra hard. I wasn't ever the most talented player, but you don't have to be. I always thought if I scored my runs, it didn't matter, how I scored them. It was just about scoring them. And I could prove myself with, as I say to the lads at Yorkshire, the right-hand column. We judged our currencies is scoring runs and taking wickets. So I always made sure that I was scoring more runs than the guys that was sat around in the dressing room.
So just rewinding on that, it sounds like you got professional way before you got a professional contract in your behaviours.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, absolutely. I think just when I got that carrot dangled that you're probably going to get an academy contract, that's when it clicked to me that, wow, I wanted to be a professional sportsman. I wanted to be a footballer. I wanted to play in front of people. I wanted to entertain people. And then that was close to becoming a reality by being given an opportunity, an academy contract. So I thought, right, this is my chance. This is my chance to play professional sport. I have to give everything towards it. And like I said, I wasn't the most talented. You know that, Brycey Wayne. I know that I look around some of the lads in the Yorkshire dressing room now, and they've got so much talent. And I used to look around as a player and think, wow, these guys are so much better than me. They can do things that I could never do. But all I can do is control what I do, and that's scoring runs. If I score more runs than them, then they're not going to overlook me.
And just to be very clear, your granddad, the chat that you had, you didn't go into the nets and work on something technical for weeks on end. He had a word with you, and you switched something mentally, which then drove your game to the next level. You started churning out big runs instead of just contributing a little bit. And that was a completely mental thing.
Yeah, exactly. And we spend so much time in the nets, don't we? Hitting balls and thinking we get better by that. And you do, repetition work you guys are doing this time of the year, the repetition work that I do with the guys at Yorkshire is massive. And the technical work, you still need to be good technically, but also, training yourself mentally, putting yourselves in different positions, how you react, how you soak up pressure. Ultimately, the best players are the ones that make the best decisions under pressure and consistently. And when it comes back to scoring runs or taking wickets, it's the guys that generally do the basics the best for long periods of time. And that's a mental thing. Can you concentrate when you get to 30? And I don't think at 14 or 15, I concentrated hard enough when I got to 30. I thought I was in and I could take the bowler down and play a big shot. And before you knew it, I was watching everyone else get runs and letting my mum and dad down. So it was that feeling of letting other people down, I think, that I had to work on my concentration levels when I batted. And after that, throughout my career, I was always a good one for, if I got to 60, I always converted and made them into hundreds.
Which pay the bills. At this point, do you just want to tell everyone, you had notoriously the best pack-up in the dressing room when we were on the academy when we were growing up together. Do you want to just tell everyone how what went on one day when you got to the bottom of who was pinching all your lunch?
Yeah, my mum always used to pack me, probably like some of you lot, that she always give me a really good pack up on a match day. She used to give me some bizarre sandwiches, actually, like cheese and jam, stuff like that. She thought were really good for energy. But I'd go out and warm up and have a few throwdowns. I'd come back in the dressing room, and someone had always nicked my sandwiches. They were gone. I was absolutely gutted. So by the time the game started, I was absolutely starving. I had no sandwiches. So I got to the bottom of who were doing this week in, week out. Every Saturday, my sandwiches had gone. So I got my mum to fill my sandwiches with chili powder. Now, you've never seen anything like it. I came back from the warm-up, and there was a lad called Gary Newton. And I think he had his head under the shower trying to cool his mouth down. So that were a lesson to him and a tick in my box.
A beauty. Protect your lunches, kids. Gailey, Tom's asked who's a lefty. He said, being a left-hander, did this help or hinder your career? Or did it just have no effect whatsoever?
Well, if you ask the right-handers, they say left-handers get all the bad balls, don't they? And there's a lot of balls that pitch outside the leg. But did it help or hinder my career? It probably helped me because I'm different, because I'm a right-handed thrower. I bowl, well, if you can call it bowling, right arm. So I was, you probably wouldn't think this when I was batting, but I was top hand dominant then because my right hand was on the top of the bat. What used to happen is people thought I was bottom hand dominant because my left hand was nowhere near as strong as my right hand. So it actually used to pull out the shots, I used to end up shoveling it through mid wicket or carving it through point and gully area. So I think that helped me being like that, just a bit awkward handedness, really.
In terms of selection, when you're picking your teams and when you have done in the past, I know coming through there was yourself and Joe Sayers. Trying to think of any other lefties, maybe Michael Lum, Vic Craven. Do you think you're always looking? Are you looking for a quarter of left-handers? Do you try and get that in, or is that? I know it used to be a bit of a myth, didn't it?
I think obviously in an ideal world, you like left right hand for a number of reasons. It's harder for the bowlers to adjust their lines and lengths. Usually when you're playing T20 cricket, for instance, you're playing on one side of the square, so you can always attack the short boundary. But the best batters are the best batters. I think whoever's scoring the most runs are the ones that play. You as young lads, I don't think whether you're left hand or right hand really matters. You're just judged on however many runs and wickets you take, and the cream always comes to the top, in my opinion. So, at the minute we've got an abundance of left-handers at Yorkshire, Live, Balance, Milan. 3 out of our top 5, I think, are all left-handers, which that's great. But if they were all right-handers, I don't think it matters either. I think different things. We had when we won the championship, we had Livy and Alex Lees opening the batting. One guy was really tall and one guy was short. Livy likes to drive the ball. Leesy likes to pull the ball. So it was hard for the opposition bowlers to find their lines and lengths against them, because even though they were both left-handed, there were still very, very different players in their own right.
Too true. This is a good one from Lewis. What do you consider to be the biggest difference in players starting their professional career today compared to when you started your professional career?
I think the biggest thing is the fitness of the players. When we start to come through, fitness, it was regarded as you had to be fit, but we didn't really know how, and we wasn't told. And we were on 6-7 month contracts. So, I used to have a job every winter. I've had some bizarre jobs, from being a toy demonstrator at Marks and Spencer's to being a builder's labourer, to reading gas meters. So I used to work right from sort of September, end of September, right through to the start of February. And that's when we'd come in. You'd have a sort of a 4 or 5 week pre-season, and then you'd start. But now the lads they're in after 6 weeks off, which they don't really have off. They still take over physically. They come in and they're in the gym 4 or 5 times a week. So you can see that convert into performance. You only have to watch the pace of the T20 games, the fielding, how fast the game is. I think so. I think that the professionalism and the fitness of the players really watch what they eat now. They're tested for how much fat they carry, what they weigh, what their hydration levels are, if they need to get stronger, if they have to lose muscle. Everything's individual, and we'll look at every discipline of a player and physically, and then work with that player to reach their physical best so they can perform at their best. So it wasn't just rocking up in February, do a few laps of the ground and then bat and ball all day. It's
changed a lot, certainly has, for the better. There's a lot of people, Gale, want to know what your greatest achievement on the cricket field is.
Well, that's quite easy. I've taken 1 first-class wicket against Loughborough University. So that's got to be up there. My greatest achievement is, I think winning back-to-back county championships. To do it once was special, but it's not a fluke if you do it twice. And I remember after we won it the first time, sitting down with the senior players and saying, right, what do we have to do to win back-to-back county championships? And we knew we had to be really disciplined. We knew we couldn't take form for granted. we were harsh on ourselves with our training. We had to be fitter and just train even harder than we did the season before. So when the celebration,
Greeny, can you still hear him, or has he gone?
hello, can you hear me?
Oh, you're back, mate. You're back.
Sorry, I went off there.
Double championship
when
we
the
got to.
celebrations. Yeah, sorry. When the celebrations died down, we wanted to make sure that it wasn't just a flash in the pan. So to win back-to-back county championships and go close with a third as well, going right down to the last day of the season, that's my proudest moment. You know, having come through the ranks from, as I said, 10, 11 years old to eventually becoming captain, to get to lift the county championship was very, very special. I'll never forget that.
They're a special group there, weren't they? Because you'd spent 12, 15 years with some of those guys that you'll lift the trophy with. Gone again.
Hello?
Yeah, you're back.
Have you got me, Ricey?
Yeah, got you, mate.
Have you got me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I've got you, mate. Yeah. Just saying it worked. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I've got you. Sorry.
Yeah, I was just saying it must have been special because you'd spent many, many years, 10 years or more with some of those players you lifted that trophy with.
Yeah, absolutely. Coming through the ranks with Pato, Brez, Richie P, these sorts of guys come through the ranks and then developed and got a real togetherness about us all the way through. Then to eventually lift the county championship was special because we were doing it with our mates. You know, you always, when you look back on your career, you always remember the great times you had with your friends. You know, people don't always judge you by your stats. They remember you by the memories that you made. And I think, you know, coming through the ranks with them guys and then eventually winning back-to-back championships was very special.
Brilliant. I think I know an answer to this one from what you've just said, but Lewis wants to know, is there anything you wanted to achieve but didn't? And if so, what do you believe were the reasons for not getting there?
Yeah, I wanted to play for England. I wanted to go all the way. That's, you set out as a professional cricketer and your ambition, your end goal, I think always has to be, you want to play for England at the highest level, test yourself against the best in the world. And I never got that chance. And, you know, I went close. I'd had a couple of years on the Lions and I'd captained the Lions. I'd actually done quite well. We had a tour of the West Indies and averaged, you know, just short of 50, I think I did on that tour. But if I'm being totally honest, I don't think I was good enough. You know, I watch the players now who are playing international cricket and they had far superior talent to what I had. Maybe in a different era would I have played? Yeah, I think over the last 2 or 3, if I'd have been 26, 27 and England were chopping and changing, then I might have got an opportunity. But ultimately, I think if I look at myself in the mirror, I don't think I had the talent to perform at that top level. But yeah, it still grates me today. I'd love, you know, when people talk about your career, you want to be known as an England player. But that didn't happen. So yeah, I think after when I got to a certain age where I knew I wasn't going to play for England, maybe I lost a little bit of edge, I think, because of that.
Right, just that realisation.
Yeah, just that, you know, I got to 32 in my last year, I think I was, and my last year of playing, and I could have played for another 4 or 5 years, I think, but I just lost a little bit of edge that I wanted to play for England, and I knew the reality was that I wasn't going to be able to do that from that age onwards.
Tough call. Got a couple of good ones for you from Charlie. We'll start off with an easy one. Favourite ground, either in the UK or abroad?
It's got to be Scarborough, I think, because it's the only place I ever got runs. So the wickets suit my style of batting there, and yeah, I got double. I think I've got 600s there in total. So over a quarter of my first class hundreds at Scarborough. Always a ground I love playing at.
This one, I think you can talk about this for it. What is the most difficult part about being a captain? And you cannot just answer with Brez.
The most difficult part is the easy bit is on the field. You know, it's easy to put 3 slips in instead of 2 slips, and an extra cover or no extra cover, fine leg, third man. They're the easy parts. Changing bowlers. The hardest part of being a captain is picking the team and leaving players out. You know, they want to play every game, and unfortunately, you can only take 11 players on the field. So there's always going to be a handful of guys who are disappointed, and you're almost taking their ambition and dream away from them if you don't give them that opportunity. So that's the hardest thing, managing players who want to play. You know, and especially when they're your mates as well. You know, ultimately, the captain's role in cricket is very different to any other sport. You've got the autonomy to you pick the final team, the final 11 that goes on the field. So it's some difficult conversations at times, and players don't always agree with you. But you've just got to follow your gut instinct and pick the team that you think is going to win the game.
Is that how it works at every county, mate? Is that the captain's got the final say? So is it a chat between you and the head coach, and then you get final say?
Yeah, I mean, us counties do things slightly different, and you know, I've had a number of coaches where we've done things differently. Under Martin Moxon was head coach, and he just wanted me to run everything. So as a young captain, in my first couple of years, that was very difficult, from telling the coach how we wanted training to be led and what we wanted to do, to picking the team, to telling the players who were playing and who didn't. And then when Dizzy came in, we changed it. I found that I'd probably got too distant from the lads because of that. So Dizzy took all that weight off me, and he was the one that, you know, fired the bullet eventually at the player that wasn't playing, and had that awkward and tough conversation, and I could just concentrate on my pre-match practice, but he still gave me that autonomy for picking the team. There was only a couple of occasions really in over 5 years where we disagreed, and in one game I let Dizzy have his way, and it went totally wrong, so I always kept reminding him on that, and then next time we disagreed, he let me have my way. So a couple of times over 5 years isn't bad.
This one's from me, actually. Do you think the captaincy ever hindered your run scoring potential with having to think about too much? Or when you batted, were you just a batter? Could you focus on that?
Yeah, I think it helped me, if anything. I think it took the focus away from myself. I was always looking at the scoreboard and what the team needed. So, you know, ultimately, you've got to score runs. And if you're not scoring runs, you're not respected by the group. So I think it gave me an edge, and it made me a lot more driven towards winning, rather than just concentrating on my own score.
I think Charlie's teeing himself up to be a captain here. He wants to know, what advice would you give to young captains?
I think my best advice I could give young captains is follow your gut feeling. Don't be railroaded into a decision that you don't want to make. I think as I was a young captain, I listened to too many voices, and it clouded my mind at times. And I think, you know, when you're out there on the field, you know what the right decision to make is. There's no right or wrong to captaincy. You can look a genius, you can put a leg slip in, and the ball at a leg stump, and he flicks it straight at the guy at leg slip, and everyone says you're a genius of a captain. But ultimately, as a captain, you're only as good as your players. You know, captaining, you look at some of the best captains in the world at the minute. You know, Steve Smith when he was captain, Tim Payne now. You know, if you've got a bowling attack of Hazelwood, Cummins, Stark, and a spinner in Lyon, it's quite easy to captain them guys because they're the best bowlers in the world. So I'd say my biggest advice to young captains is follow your gut instincts. Don't be railroaded into any decisions that you don't want to make.
Nice. We had, when we spoke to Puds and Brez, the big things that were coming through were championship winning years. Everyone knew the job, which must have made your life a lot easier as captain. Everyone knew where to bowl. Everyone knew how to bat. They just knew what they were doing.
Yeah, and again, they were experienced players by that point. So Brez were playing for England. Puds, he'd come to the club with some poor form, but we knew how we wanted him to bowl. So giving people clarity in their roles. You know, Liam Plunkett, perfect example. We used to say to him, you're not going to bowl long spells, but just bowl as fast as you can. I'm not bothered if you go for runs. Your job is to break a partnership. So if the game was going nowhere, he'd come round the wicket, put a short leg in, bowl as fast as he could for 3 overs, and he might just pick up a wicket. He might go for a few runs, but he knew his role. Steve Patterson, the total opposite. He would bowl long spells. I would expect him to bowl 8-9 over spells and keep it tight and bowl as many dot balls as he could. And that meant if he bowled in a partnership with Jack Brooks, he bowled full attacking lengths, wicket-taking lengths, but they were going to have to score the runs off Jack Brooks, which created opportunities for him. So, we had a good balance in our attack as well. You had Ryan Sidebottom into that, the left arm as well. We had great balance in the attack as well, but people knew their roles.
Brilliant. This one's from Will, but I'm sure Charlie will love this one as well. What do you think, in your opinion, are the qualities of a good captain? Has he gone again? Wayne, as I'm coming to you, you've played under some very good captains in your time, and many captains, no doubt. Best qualities in a captain, mate?
Best captains I've ever played under would have it's that communication and knowing the players. So knowing which players you can probably have a go at and be hard with and say, come on, switch on, what you're doing. And knowing which players would react negative to that, might sulk, do they need an arm round them, etc. So managing your players is a bit most difficult thing, but the best captains would be able to do that successfully and get the most out of each individual, bringing them together to become that unity and become that team that can go on to great things like Gale has done with Yorkshire a couple of times.
Greenie, what do you look for in your captains when you're picking your squads, either for college or the JPP? What are you looking for?
Well, obvious answers are guys who are smart enough tactically. But I think if you're looking at the higher level, you've got to look at how you're trying to build the environment. So if you want to have your fearless team or your lads who are going to have no fear of failure, that's got to come from the captain as well and the senior players. So if you look at somebody like Alistair Cook were brilliant, how any kind of mistake on a pitch and you never see him react. So that can build confidence in young cricketers. If you look at someone like Virat Kohli, who loses his head a lot as well, that could have a negative impact. So for me, you are just more than your intelligence. It's how you perceived, how you're seen by the players to get the best out of them.
Nice. So Gale, yep, I can see you now. We're just looking for qualities of a good captain, in your opinion.
I think first and foremost, you've got to be respected in the dressing room by your peers. I think you've not got to shy away from making decisions. You got to know the game. You got to have some sort of experience. I'm not saying you have to be really experienced, but you've got to know the game, how it works, different conditions, what your best team is, which your best bowlers are. But I think first and foremost and ultimately, you've got to have the respect in the dressing room. If you haven't got that, then your players aren't going to follow you. And if you look at all the best captains, they're the ones that the players respect. And you get respect by, one, I think, being a good bloke in the dressing room, and two, by your performances.
Lovely answer. Tough one, this. How does a captain deal effectively with players that don't do as they are asked? That's from Will, so I'm assuming he's a bit of a rogue.
I think, look, everyone's different, aren't they? And some players don't want to do the things that you want them to do. But it's about relationships and sitting down with that player and deciding what's the best way of going about this. Because some of the best players aren't they always the ones that want to stick to the rules or whatever. But I think they've got to give something to the team, not just runs and wickets. They've got to give something to the team as well, not just take from the team. But I think you've got to ask questions of why you don't want to follow. I don't think there's such a thing as an unmanageable player. I don't believe that. I think players are some are harder and some are easier, but I don't think anyone's unmanageable. I think you've got to sit down with that player and find out what works for them.
That's brilliant. It's almost like you planned this. So Lewis wants to know, I think he's after some naming and shaming here, some gossip. He wants to know, who was the easiest and most difficult person to captain when you were the Yorkshire captain?
The easiest. I think the easiest guys were people like Adam Live. He's still a breath of fresh air now. Live is a great follower. I wouldn't say he's a massive leader. He's a leader in the way he goes about things, but he's a good follower. I think Rooty's always been really easy to captain. The way he goes about his business, how humble he is when he's successful. Them two guys. The hardest to captain. Brez was pretty difficult at times. If I said black, he'd say white, but he's always been like that. We always had a great relationship, and we've always been good friends and grown up together. But at times, he was difficult to manage, and his strength was a weakness because he could kid himself. If he bowled a leg stump half volley, and I said, you're bowling a load of rubbish, he'd convince himself that he was bowling really good balls, and the batsmen were just playing really good shots against him. Of which I'd ask the umpire, what line were that ball? And he'd say it's going down leg, and Brez would say no, it's hitting off stump. So that were his strengths because he kidded himself on that. But when I brought him off the next over, there was obviously a disagreement there. So that was challenging at times.
So if Brez is kicking off like that, or let's take his name out of it, if a bowler is let's say not being truthful to themselves, how long will you go along with that before you think, right, I've got to change this now? This isn't working anymore. Just going to have to go and take some time out.
Well, I think it comes back to that respect. So they might not agree with my decision. You might bring them off and they'll sulk at fine leg. But they ultimately respect you. So, it would be a conversation later down the line. And they still might not agree with you. They still might say, look, that was rubbish. You shouldn't have brought me off. You just say, look, I'm just trying to make decisions to win the game. They're not always right. Get a lot wrong. But ultimately, I'm just trying to win games of cricket. And I thought that was the right decision at that moment. You might be right. Maybe I should have bowled you that extra over too. But you tell me a bowler, unless he's tired, that does like to be brought off. And ultimately, you've got to weigh up and follow that gut instinct at that moment in time that you think this is the right decision.
Nice. Hope that's answered your question there, Lewis. Hope we got enough goss. There's everyone in the world, mate, wants to know about your coaching journey. So what made you want to become a coach? How did you become one? Yours was a very conventional route, wasn't it? So how did it all start, the coaching route, mate? How did Pro Coach start?
Well, yeah, going right back to the start of Pro Coach, I always knew in my mind, whatever happened with cricket, I always wanted to eventually become a coach. And I'd gone away for a couple of winters playing cricket abroad, and I felt like I needed a break. But I've never been a guy just to sit around and play PlayStation, or as it's called now, Nintendo Switch or whatever. I was never a guy just to sit down all winter and do that and wait for training to start. So I thought to myself, what can I do that's going to make me a more rounded person and give myself a bit of education? So I started setting up just coaching courses at my local cricket club and a few other local clubs, and rang the papers because there wasn't really social media then, and put an advert in the papers. And before I knew it, I had a number of courses that were full, and I absolutely loved the coaching. So I used to coach as much as I could, and alongside my playing career. And then it got to my last year. I had a year left on my contract, but I had a bit of an up and down year. I wasn't performing the way I wanted. I was losing a bit of appetite for the game. And I talked about retiring. I spoke to director of cricket, Martin Moxon, and Jason Gillespie left at the end of the year, and he convinced me to carry on playing. So I said, look, I'll play another year to the end of my contract and see what happens. And I met Martin to go through the list of candidates to replace Jason Gillespie, and he said, look, I think the best man for the job is you. So would you consider being head coach? Now, I always wanted to go into professional coaching, but I didn't quite see me going right at the top level. I sort of saw myself starting at the bottom, academy coach or a batting coach somewhere, but it was too good an opportunity to turn down. I mean, how can you turn that opportunity down? So I grasped it with both hands, really. And the journey from then on in, it's been a difficult one, because we knew as a club we were going to go through a transition stage. We knew that the likes of Brez and Plunkett, Brooks, Hod, to name a few, were coming to the back end of their careers, and Siddy, and we needed to bring this next generation through. We pride ourselves on bringing guys like you through our pathway, bringing them onto the academy, and then giving them an opportunity to be the next Joe Root, Johnny Bairstow. So we had to give these guys enough time to learn on the job, really, of how to become a professional cricketer, because we didn't want to sign players from the outside. So likes of Matthew Fisher and Tom Culler-Cadmore, Ben Code, these guys, we needed to give them an opportunity. And we're getting to a stage now where they've come through that and started to be experienced players and learn enough about the game to be successful consistently. So it was a roller coaster, really, in my first few years, from managing these guys as a captain to them making decisions on their futures. And it was difficult, but I think as the years have gone on, I've become more comfortable in my own skin of being a coach. I've learned a hell of a lot. I'm far from the finished article, because I don't think you ever are as a player or as a coach. But I've enjoyed my job at Yorkshire and still do. You're on mute, Brycey.
Sorry, pal. My young'un were going nuts. I thought I'd better mute it. What's the biggest thing you've learned from day one to now? You've said you've learned a lot. Is there anything that stands out?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is how to treat people individually. So I think as a captain, you treat players as a blanket. So you treat them all the same. But I think as a coach, you have to really work hard on building a relationship and getting to know that individual and what makes them tick, how you can get the best out of them in the training, the preparation, to ultimately getting the best out of them on the field. And that takes time. Building relationships up takes time. So, bringing these young players through, whether it's having a coffee with them or just spent time chatting to them in the nets, knowing them as a person. I think that's the biggest thing that I've learned.
Good. When you need time to do that. Can I just go back to the start of your answer for the last question and say, we rang the papers and they didn't have social media? You sounded really old.
I am old, I think.
I know, but it's bad, because that means I am. I don't know what grade.
Look about.
He's in the same bracket. So there's a few also want to know, what makes you really happy when you're coaching? What are the results you're looking for that give you the buzz?
Well, I think first and foremost, you want to win, don't you? That's why we're all involved in sport, the feeling you get when you win. It's a different feeling as a coach, because as a player, you could dine out on a win for a few days before you think about the next game. But as a coach, you're thinking it's more relief, really. You think, and then you'll always look into the next game or the next tournament. You're always planning ahead. So you get that relief for a minute, and then you go, right, what's the next game? What's coming up over the next month? How do we manage this guy? Who's going to go play for England? How's this guy coming back from injury? What have you? So I think first and foremost, it's a win. I think secondly, the biggest buzz I get is seeing young players get an opportunity and taking it and grasping it with both hands and doing well. When I see someone like Harry Brook and Ben Code, I mean, Ben Code's a great story. He sort of made his debut when I was captain, but never quite kicked on. And then by chance, we went on pre-season tour, and I remember walking around with the bowling coach thinking, I'm not sure how we're going to get all these bowlers into the team. We had Brez, sure, Siddy, Brooksy, Pato. We had about 10 seamers when everyone was fit. Anyway, I got a bit ahead of myself, and before you knew it, we had 4 on the physio slab getting treatment who were injured. 2 lads, Dave Willey and Liam Plunkett, came to me 3 or 4 days before the season and said they're going to go to the IPL. So before you know it, I'm thinking, I'm not going to have any seamers. So Ben Coad came in, and I think he took 8, 9, maybe 10 wickets in his first game of that season, and he took his chance. And what a buzz that is! He's gone on to take 50 wickets every season since. So, for me as a coach, to give that guy the opportunity and for him to take it and grasp it and now become a senior player in the Yorkshire side, that's what gives me a buzz.
Brilliant. I love this one from Harry. What qualities are you looking for in young cricketers?
First and foremost, I'm looking for work ethic. That's a big one for me. I've never met anyone who's at top of their game who says this happened by chance. I didn't have to work hard to get here. Look at someone like Joe Root, the hours that he puts in, but also the way he trains as well. So first and foremost is work ethic. I think secondly, that goes hand in hand with the hunger to succeed. So there's got to be a selfishness about you as well, that almost an arrogance that you're going to do whatever it takes to be the best that you can be. So I'm looking for that in players, but hand in hand with that, I'm looking for good blokes as well. They can still be selfish, but be a good team man. You would say Rooty's selfish in the way he goes about his batting, but he gives to the team. You look at Jonathan Trott. Was he selfish as a player? Absolutely. But he gives to the team. Alistair Cook, same. But he gives to the team. So they're good blokes. You're always looking for guys that give to the team as well.
Greenie, Wayne's same question. I'm going to come to you too. Greenie, is that I know you've got a certain policy at college. I know now, but anything that you'd add to that from Gale, what you're looking for in young cricketers?
Yeah, definitely. I'm not going to repeat that. But he's just a good bloke thing, isn't it, really? But I think it's the willingness to learn from coming from the point of view of a 12, 13, 14-year-old just making the way in county cricket or district cricket. It is that willingness to learn, and not when they see themselves getting to that county age group. We do see a lot of kids. I wouldn't say I think they've made it, but they're scared of changing. So that's not always a great thing, because they can just plateau there. So I would always say, if you are willing to learn and change, maybe take that little step back, which will allow you to go forward further in future. For me, that's massive.
Wayne, have we ticked every box, or is there anything else that you look for, mate?
Yeah, you've pretty much covered it all. I mean, I've probably 2 points, really, I think. Just one area might be where you'd look to push yourself. Now, that might not be fitness necessarily. I mean, the amount of dressing rooms I've been in where I've had thoughts and ideas and not said it, and then gone home and thought, I wish I'd said that. It's like at a younger age, if you can get used to, right, I'm going to push ball out today. I'm going to suggest this idea in this group chat or whatever. Might go one or two ways, but I'm better getting it out there. And you find that 9 times out of 10, somebody else in the room's thinking it, or it's not a bad idea, and they're glad you've said it. So just pushing your own boundaries as a young player, and then just asking Gailey really about, I think about the environment he grew up in. He used to have to score 100 after 100 in the second team. And would in your mind be thinking, let's say there were 3 of you and Joe Sayers, would you be thinking, right, Joe's not got 100 today, I need to get 100, A, because he's missed out, but B, because the team needs it. It's like, find that balance, would you, back then? I know it was a fierce environment compared to what it is today. I bet you'll get lads knocking on your door after 30 runs today saying, get me in first team, when back then it was 100 after 100, dog eat dog, but you're all trying to get the runs for the team, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's that selfishness. I always saw myself as a good team man, but I was always looking at the person above me who I could take their spot in the first team. And then when I got in the first team, I was always looking above that in the Lions, whose spot can I take there? got in the lines, I'm thinking, whose spot can I take in the England? So I was never looking behind. I was always looking forward, and that selfishness to trample over anyone really that got in my way, because I was so driven to wanting to succeed. And I'd be thinking in the dressing room, well, I want to win today, but if I'm in the second team, I want to score more runs than him over there and him over there, because if there's a spot that comes up in that first team, I want to be the one that takes it. And it's changed slightly now. Like you say, players don't probably have to earn the right as much in second team cricket, and a bit more fast tracked, which is fine. But back then, they always used to say to me, "Don't just knock on the door, hammer it down." And how do you do that? If someone's scored 200-300s in the space of a month, the line. If you don't get your chance, then you can only blame yourself if you haven't got them runs.
So in with that, Elliot wants to know, and I'm assuming it's very similar, what qualities do you look for when you're signing players? So I'm assuming that'll be either from the academy and up, giving them their chance on the professional staff, or potentially even from other counties, like we've just recently signed Don Bess.
Yeah, I think when it comes to signing our own lads on the staff, I'm very much led by Ian Dews and Richard Dams. They've got a great academy system that they run. They've got a well-proven history of bringing players through, so they'll recommend players. But I do dip into that as well. I will go to the academy and find out what these lads are about. When I'm signing players from the outside, ultimately they've got to give something that we haven't got. So, we haven't had a senior batsman who's churned runs out year in, year out. We've been crying out for that. So we went and signed David Milan. But also you've got to find out what they're like as a character as well. Are they going to give to the group? And so far, David's been brilliant. We had one of the reasons why we had Don Bess on loan was to find out about him as a guy. And he fitted into the group perfectly. Very confident young man, gives a lot to the team, and also he's a good spinner as well. So that's a spot that since Adil left, we haven't quite filled that void with one of our own yet in red ball cricket. So I think when we sign from the outside, it's got to be something that we haven't got.
Makes sense. So this is a good one from Seb. What does it feel like coaching the England under-19s? So you've head of the club, obviously, in a coaching realm. And when you go to the England 19, do you feel like the new boy at school again? Or how does that feel? That's the national under-19. So these boys are the next cabs off the rank for that England squad.
I absolutely loved it. It was different for me because when I'm at Yorkshire, head coach, there's a lot of planning and there's a lot of man management. When you look at some of the senior guys, I'm not going to coach Joe Root. I'm not going to coach Adam Live. I'm not going to coach David Milan, even Ben Code. I'm managing them as people and trying to get the best out of them. But when I went to the England setup, I didn't have to think about the schedule, what players need on what days, their fitness stuff, all that sort of thing. I was a batting consultant there, so I could just concentrate on them individually as batsmen and making them better. And who better to work with than the best young players at 19 in the country who are desperate to learn and do well. So it was a great environment for me to go into and just park that head coach's role behind me, not think about selection, get close to them as guys and have a laugh with them, but ultimately get down some nitty-gritty of some hard work and getting the best out of them as batsmen. So I absolutely loved it.
Brilliant. Greatest achievement or proudest moment as a coach? That's from Tilly, who you'll remember, the Chinaman.
Yeah, I do remember Tilly.
Yeah.
The greatest achievement as a coach is bringing these young lads through, the likes of Harry Brook and Ben Code, Matthew Fisher, Matthew Waite, Jordan Thompson last year. That's my proudest thing so far. But the icing on the cake for me would be to bring them through and some trophies now. I think transition's only good if you come out of it. And we've talked about transition for a long time, about performing and bringing some trophies home. And I feel these players are getting to a stage where they're ready for that. They're ready. There's an expectation that comes with Yorkshire cricket, and that's to be up there with the best in the country. So we've come through this stage where we've had to give guys opportunities and learn on the job, but we're coming to a stage now where they're ready to kick on the other side of that and be the team that we was when we were winning trophies.
Good to hear. No pressure then. Great from Noah. What's the best piece of advice you've got from talking to other players and coaches?
Well, I think first and foremost is talking. That's just a good thing. I don't think we do it enough. Talk to your peers. It seems to be, certainly with our players now, back in the day in the old school, you'd have a pint in the bar and talk about the game, but you don't mix as much now. So I try to encourage the lads to stay behind after a game and just chat and learn, because you learn from other people. Everybody does things differently. They prepare differently for a game, the way they go about it mentally, how they're feeling. But my biggest advice is to chat about cricket. That's when you learn. You don't just learn in the nets, hitting ball after ball, ball in, ball after ball. You know, learn from your coaches, but learn from your mates as well, because they might just have one nugget, and they're the best coaches as well. You know, I'd ask Pato or Brooksy, how would you look to get me out? And they'd say, oh, probably 9 times out of 10 LBW, because I had a heavy head. So, you know, that I knew that if they were looking at that, then I would have to get on a bowling machine and work hard at that. They knew my game.
I know Stu's done a lot of research, shall we say. Stu, have you got any other advice like that? I know you've your brother recently.
You go R2.
Sorry, Woody, can you just mute, please, mate?
Yeah, I am.
Stu, are you there?
Yeah. There's obviously quite a lot in terms of a package. I think touching on what Gailey and sort of Wayne and Green have all covered, sort of the work ethic of individual players, it's massive. I'm big on trying to sort of challenge players to be a great individual, but with a massive team focus. And one of the things that I tend to throw out there is that when you're in the trenches, you're not going to win many battles against the 11 players just on your own. So I think you've got to obviously try and work as a team as much as you possibly can. And sort of get out of your comfort zone, be prepared to make mistakes for the benefit of your learning as well. You can call them mistakes if you like. It's probably what most people would sort of understand, but don't be afraid of making mistakes. And obviously that will ultimately allow you to become a better cricketer and learn from them. I think quite often so many young players are so scared of making mistakes for fear of obviously how it feels or what a parent or a friend or teammate might say. I think Gailey touched on that earlier about sort of that internal pressure, and don't worry about that. You know, mistakes will happen no matter what you're doing in any sport, and it's just trying to overcome that and sort of challenge yourself for the better of you.
Nice. Gailey, number one tip for a young cricketer.
Number one tip for a young cricketer: enjoy it. That's you ask anyone. Why do we play the game? Because we love it, don't we? Why do we get up at 6 o'clock this morning to switch the telly on and watch England? Because we love the game. So enjoy playing it. And I think you learn best and perform at your best when you enjoy it. No matter what happens, I'd always put into that as well, play to win, because you enjoy it when you're winning and scoring runs and taking wickets, but enjoy the game, because this is why we're on a call on a Friday evening, because we love the game.
That's been the same answer from every single person. Just enjoy it. This is very relevant. Leo, I'm going to actually answer this one for Gailey. So he's asked, does he have any advice for how to keep up his cricket training indoors that don't have a garden? The simple answer to that one, Leo, is Ben Holderness has designed an indoor program that starts on Monday. So get your parents to email us, and you can go under Ben's leadership on his weekly sessions. It is tough, but Gailey, have you thought of anything to do indoor? Obviously, the weather's going to be poor again this weekend. What can we do just to keep going?
Yeah, I mean, we obviously had that period in the first lockdown where it was new to us as professional cricketers that we flew to India on a pre-season tour, and we were only there one night, and we came back. We were told to get back and we got back not knowing when we're going to play cricket. We will start the first game or whether we're playing in May. And in the end, we ended up playing from, I think it was July onwards. So that was a period there, which was, what can the lads do at home? And there is so much you can do. First and foremost, you've got to keep yourself fit, physically fit, because when you start up again, you've got to be able to bowl and bat to the level that you're left at. And I think secondly, I've seen some of Ben's drills, that hand-eye coordination and across all sports. I think you've got to keep up with that as much as you can.
Stanners, can you just mute, please, pal? I think we capped that one off. Cheers, Gailey. So, Leo, if you need any help, just get your parents or your guardians just to drop us an email, mate. That's absolutely fine. Adam, this is a good one. If you have one tip, Gailey, you've obviously said, and you prided yourself on, once you were in, you went big, and we saw you do that many times, quite often at Scarborough. So, Adam wants to know, if you had one tip for building an innings, what would it be?
Yep, my biggest thing is, well, two biggest things. I'll give you two tips because I like to work around these. Is always look to score, because I believe that gets you into your best position. So that doesn't mean, having a massive drive at a ball that's a good length or trying to pull the ball on the top of the stumps. By looking at score, it can get you into your best position in defence as well. So when you're playing a forward defensive, you get your feet apart and your head over the ball. The second tip is just react to the ball, that one ball mentality. Whatever's gone on before, that ball before, you might have played and missed and played a terrible shot, it's gone. Park it. Just react to the next ball. And that ability just to forget about what's gone on before. You might have got a ball that's swung big and just gone over the stumps or whatever, swung big away, and you've played a big drive at it. But can you put that to the back of your mind and concentrate on that next ball that's coming down? Because if you start getting ahead of yourself, like you say, I prided myself on getting 100. Well, all I thought about when I was getting to 70 is, when I was on 60 or 70 is, what was my mindset when I was on 10 or none? And my mindset was, right, I'm looking to score, but all that matters is the next ball. It's the next ball.
So get I was just about to ask, what's the key to that then? That big booming drive that you've inside edged onto your pad and it's just missed off stump and there's been a big appeal. It's just the next ball. That is how you do it, because everyone's all right saying, "Oh, just forget about it. Don't worry about that." That's it. Next ball.
Yeah, and there's ways and means of going about that. I was big into my routine in between balls. I'd always pat the pitch down 3 times. I'd walk to the pitch next to me and I always tap, the old wicket where the wickets went in. I'd tap the middle stump of that 3 times. And that was my way of switching off in between balls. I'd always scratch my mark 3 times. Don't ask me why, but that was my way in between balls of keeping me in the present, as opposed to thinking too far ahead. Thinking, well, if I get to 80 and then I get to 90, and then it was keeping me in the moment. And that comes down to process and the training that I'd done. So, yeah, you've got to stay in the moment or not look back and not look too far forward.
Good. This could test you. The best bowling drill for a kid that has had the most success, which is still used today. So has Cody or Brooksy done anything, a certain drill, and it's had their success, and what would that be?
Yeah, it's difficult as a non-bowler. I always say batting's an art and bowling's a science. So it's just a repeatable action. So I think that consistency, repeatable action is the main thing. I think keeping it simple, speaking to our bowling coach, the simple biomechanics of getting everything going towards your target is as good as it gets. Getting your head and your chest and your front arm going towards your target. How do you do that? Well, I'm sure you guys worked on some of the pro coach courses on putting cones down and keeping everything going in a tram line towards your target. That's the main thing. Because if you're falling off your action, you're going to overcompensate and overbalance in a different part of your body. So get everything going towards your target.
Simple stuff. Mark Wood did a great thing on Sky Sports about that, actually. Brilliant. Just so simple. Morris has asked a very complicated question about the 100, and it's a political one. So I'm going to avoid the first part of it and ask the second part of. In your opinion, do you think the 100 will be around in 5 years' time, or is it a short win for cricket?
I think it will be around to stay. I don't think it's a short win. My concern with it at the minute with COVID is we're not going to be able to attract the best players, which should set it apart from the other tournaments. So because of the quarantining and the bubbles, players like Steve Smith and David Warner and these guys who you young guys in cricket want to watch, they're going from bubble in the IPL, then they've got to go back to Australia and quarantine for another 2 weeks, then come to England and quarantine for 2 weeks. And you could say, well, yeah, they're earning loads of money, but it's quite mentally fatiguing for them. So are we going to attract the best players in the 100 this year, or should they postpone it another year? I don't know, because things are moving fast with the virus out there. But I think it'll be here to stay. But what I'd love to see is it played with the best players in front of big crowds and you young guys turning up on a Friday night at Headingley and watching, Ben Stokes sit at 10 rows back, something different that we don't see in the T20 Blast.
You and you had a front row seat for that. Obviously, you were Darren Lehmann's assistant coach, weren't you?
Yeah, I still am going into this year. So we're just planning the draft in a few weeks' time and which players Darren wants and stuff. And I don't know how it's going to work. It might be on the Zoom. I better make sure my internet's right for that night.
You want to get some tokens in meter for that, mate? Yeah.
If I missed out on signing a few of the big guns because my Zoom's gone down, I'm going to be in trouble. So there's a lot more planning. It's not just a turn up and smash and grab sort of tournament. And from what I've been involved in so far, there's a hell of a lot of analytics goes into it on which players they sign and what the makeup of the team's going to be. I'm confident that it's going to be a good competition. But like I said, I just want to see the best players playing in front of big crowds.
I think we all do. Cannot wait to get back watching cricket. I think this is simple, but if you can go into some detail on this one, mate. What are Yorkshire's priorities for the forthcoming season? I'm assuming there are many, including clearly win everything, bring on the young players, keep the old guys fit, keep everyone happy, maintain that healthy dressing room, etc., etc. But what's on your radar?
Yeah, I think you're always going to say that we want to win 3 trophies. Is that achievable? Probably not. Winning 3 trophies, no team's done it in the country. In Essex won 2 trophies a couple of years back, I think it was. But what matters to me is how, the process in what we do. So you talk there about bringing the young players through, keeping the players on the park. That comes down to the planning right back from the end of last season. Planning bowlers' workloads, the gym work that they put in, the technical work that the batters have to do, the mental side of it with a club psychologist. And I don't like talking about luck, but you do need a bit of luck as well. You do need a little bit of luck with injuries. It's not an exact science. You can't predict if you're going to lose all your seamers. You can give yourself the best chance and put all the gym work into them and the workloads and ticking that box off. But 3 of them might tear the sides in the first game. That can happen. And a little bit of luck with call-ups. Someone like Tom Kohler-Cadmore, he's on the verge of hitting the big time. I think. Is he gonna get a call-up mid-season and play some T20 or one-day cricket for England? Who knows? It's unpredictable, and you start losing some of your best players like that. David Malan, is he going to get back in the England one-day squad as well as a T20? It's very hard to plan, so you do need a little bit of luck like that as well. But in that, we've got to look behind them and say, right, who's going to take David Malan's place if that does happen? Who's going to take Tom Kohler-Cadmore's place if that happens? So there's a hell of a lot of planning that goes into a team being successful.
So given the call-ups, the injuries, the different tournaments globally, England putting players on rest that they never used to do, things like that, would you say the opportunities for the youth coming through the academy, the young second teamers, that opportunity is bigger than ever?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you look at last season, it was a great season to be a young player because of COVID. No overseas players. it was a shortened season, so we had as many injuries last season in a 2.5 month season or whatever it was, compared to a 6-month season. So that created opportunity as well, and it meant people like George Hill got to showcase their skills in first class cricket. And you go, I thought this lad was maybe a couple of years off, but he can do it. Dom Leach came in and bowled beautifully, so it means that looking at the squad now, we've got more depth in it because we've had an opportunity to play him and back him last season.
Great stuff. We've had this one coming. I just want to know how you'll answer this. How would you have managed KP in his prime?
It's difficult to know because I don't know the bloke. I could very rarely come across him, and when I've come across him, he's usually playing against us and whacking us out the park. So it's hard to know how I would have managed him individually. But if you do get players that are slightly different, which you can get, again, you've got to find out what makes them tick and the way that they want to work, and find a way of pulling them in the right direction to the team goal. So, it worked for a lot of years. Peterson was a vital part of England's success. Look at the Ashes and the trophies that he won. Man of the tournament, T20, World Cup. He was vital to that. So some management style along the way must have changed. So could they stuck with him and managed him? I don't know. I wasn't involved in that, but certainly with my players, it's about that constant communication and making sure you know what works for that individual and can you work with him.
Brilliant, mate. We're out of time. We're out of questions. We can't thank you enough for giving up your time on a Friday night. Although we might have done you a favour and got you out of bath time and tea time, I don't know. But thank you very much for joining us. I'm sure everyone's very appreciative of how honest you've been on all fronts. I know we have been. So good luck with the season. Good luck with the rest of pre-season. Hope everything goes well, and thank you again. Cheers, Gailey.
Yeah, brilliant.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you.